It was the summer of 1941 in Eastern Europe, during the dark years of WWII and the rising Soviet shadow, when my childhood was stolen from me. I was only 12, still chasing butterflies in the meadows, still whispering prayers at dusk when the storm of war crashed into our quiet fields. That morning, the church bells rang, clear and stubborn, as if they wanted to remind us of heaven, while the earth itself was breaking apart. Our white house by the forest still stood, our hen still clucked in the yard, but I sensed, though I could not name it, that everything I loved was trembling. Now, as a grandmother, I return to those echoes, not because memory is kind, but because silence is far heavier than truth. The year was 1942, and the shadows of war pressed heavily upon our small Christian village in Eastern Europe. The Nazis had already marched across the border, and whispers of deportations and secret arrests drifted from one frightened neighbor to another. My mother began quietly packing the essentials, bread, wool blankets, and the small silver cross that had belonged to her grandmother, because we all knew it was only a matter of time before the soldiers came knocking. But just as we were preparing to slip away, a man appeared at our door, the local merchant, a figure both feared and respected. He had once lent my father money and now reminded him that the debt remained unpaid. In times like these, debts were not forgiven. My father pleaded, saying he had nothing left, no coins, no livestock, not even grain. The merchant's gaze shifted towards me. I was only 12, clutching my doll with its frayed dress. His lips curled into a thin, calculated smile as he declared, "If you cannot give me the money, then give me her. She will be safer with me than with soldiers." He was nearly 60, his first 2 wives long dead, and the war had left him unable to find another bride. Now, in my father's helplessness, he saw his opportunity. My mother cried out, begging him to reconsider, but outside, the distant gunfire reminded us all that time was running out. Cornered by fear, my father bowed his head. He believed that by surrendering one daughter, he could save the others. That night, under the dim flicker of a candle, I was made the wife of a man old enough to be my grandfather. The words of the priest blurred in my ears. All I could hear were my siblings sobbing quietly behind my mother's shawl. When dawn came, my family set off eastward with the refugees. I was left behind, standing at the doorway of the merchant's house, watching their silhouettes grow smaller against the horizon. My little heart did not understand war or debts. It only understood that my parents had walked away without me. In those early months, I could not understand why so many families packed their lives into carts and disappeared down the muddy roads. The world outside my window was unraveling, but inside, my mind was still that of a child. I only knew that my parents had gone, and I was left in a house that did not feel like home. The merchant who had claimed me showed little interest in raising a child bride. Instead, he placed me under the watchful eyes of his sisters-in-law. Their presence was not protective, it was oppressive. From dawn to nightfall, I scrubbed floors, hauled water, and washed clothing far too heavy for my small arms. If a dish cracked or a chore was left unfinished, blows fell swiftly, their sharp hands reminding me I was not family, only property. Across the lane lived another household, an elderly woman, her son Merrick, and his wife. Merrick had once whispered to the German patrol about a villager suspected of hiding partisans. That betrayal poisoned their name. One evening, men from that villager's family arrived, demanding answers. Merrick panicked. Convinced they had come to kill him first, he struck first with a knife. What followed was carnage. In the frenzy, Merrick and his family were cut down. Even his mother and wife who rushed between the men perished in the confusion. Another villager who tried to stop the fight lost an arm to a blade. I saw it all from my doorway. Blood on the snow, screams tearing the night. The injured man staggered toward me, shoved me inside, and slammed the door shut. "Do you want to die out there, little one?" he rasped. I could not answer. My lips trembled, my wide eyes taking in what my mind could not grasp. A short distance away lived a minority family. People whispered about because they were Romani and suspected of helping the underground. Sometimes a young man named Stefan visited them. I often saw him lingering at the threshold, small and silent, my chores done too quickly so I could snatch a glimpse of life beyond these walls. The way those households greeted each other, their shared bread, their laughter, despite hunger, stirred something in me. In their warmth, I saw a strength my captors lacked. Where the merchant's sisters-in-law gave only scorn, these families carried themselves with dignity, even under occupation. One evening, Stefan approached. He crouched low, so his gaze met mine. "You look so alone. Who watches over you here?" he asked softly. His kindness broke through my defenses, and the tears I had dammed for weeks burst free.
I told him of the merchant, of the cruel women, of the father who had traded me to save the others. Stefan listened, not with judgment, but with sorrow. "No child should live as a dead," he murmured. His voice carried a warmth that thawed something frozen inside me. That night, I returned to the merchant's house with a new thought lodged in my heart. Perhaps there was another way to belong, not through fear, but through kindness.
That evening, as shadows stretched long across the frost-covered fields, Stefan bent close and whispered, "When darkness falls, slip quietly from the house and come to the village well. I will be waiting." His words lit a fragile spark in my chest. For the first time since being left behind, I dared to imagine escape. At home, opportunity presented itself. The merchant's sister-in-law kept her keys perched high atop a wardrobe. I had seen her stash coins there before, though I had never dared touch them. That afternoon, with the house unusually quiet, I dragged a chair, stretched trembling fingers, and hooked the keys down. My heart pounded so fiercely I feared it would betray me. Inside, beneath folded shawls, I found bundles of currency, enough to secure survival. When night spread its cloak, I crept outside, each step a prayer the floorboards would not groan. The village well shimmered faintly under moonlight, and there he was, Stefan, beside a waiting horse. Without a word, he swung me onto the saddle mounted behind me and urged the animal into the dark. Hooves pounded through forest paths, branches whipping past, the night air sharp with pine and fear. By dawn, we reached his home village. His family, poor yet tightly knit, received me with wary curiosity. Stefan introduced me as one under his protection. They gave me a new Christian name, Anna, marking a fragile rebirth from the child who had been traded as property. I tried desperately to prove myself useful. I fetched water, mended clothes, scrubbed floors, anything that might earn a smile or a kind word. Some days, warmth flickered in their eyes. Other days, I was reminded I was still an outsider, a girl whose arrival was born of tragedy. Stefan himself was rarely home. He was entangled in the dangerous work of the resistance, a secret I pieced together from whispered conversations and sudden disappearances. With enemies shadowing him, every return felt like a borrowed gift of time. Then sickness struck him. His strong frame wilted, breath ragged and shallow. I knelt beside him night after night, whispering prayers to God, begging for his life. Tears stained the rough boards as I pleaded for mercy. Slowly he recovered, and hope surged in me again. But fate was merciless. One evening, Stefan left the house, promising to return. He never did. Word came swiftly. Ambushed and shot by collaborators, left to bleed into the frozen ground. The news hollowed me. The man who had offered me a new name, a chance at belonging, was gone. His family, uneducated and steeped in old beliefs, soon turned cold. "Since she came, death has followed," they muttered. Their eyes, once cautious, now brimmed with suspicion. I had shed one identity for another, but belonging still slipped through my fingers.
To them, I was neither fully kin nor truly accepted, merely a girl who carried shadows wherever she went. The money I had carried from the merchant's house did not remain mine for long. When Stefan's family discovered it, debate filled the air. "This wealth is stained," they muttered. "It was squeezed from others by greed. Such money is cursed." Yet Stefan's mother, moved by a rare tenderness, placed the folded bills in a small wooden chest. "It will stay untouched," she declared. "This is her trust. When the girl grows, she may decide its fate. If she does not live so long, only then will we use it." Not all shared her resolve. Merrick, Stefan's cousin, often drifting between idleness and schemes, had caught wind of the hidden sum. One day, he leaned close to Stefan's mother. "Give me the money. I will put it into trade. When profit comes, I'll return the principal along with more. By then, this child will be of age, and it can serve as her dowry." The old woman shook her head firmly. "No, son, this wealth is not ours to gamble. It belongs to her alone. I swore to God I would guard it. I will not betray that oath." Merrick bit back his frustration, but in his eyes a shadow settled. One chilling morning, he appeared at the doorway, his mare saddled. "Come," he told me with a forced smile. Innocent, I climbed up, trusting only that his intentions were harmless. His arm held the reins steady as the horse carried us farther and farther from the village. At last, we reached a deserted clearing deep within the forest. The trees hemmed us in, the silence oppressive. Merrick pulled me down from the saddle and set me before him on the frosted ground. Then, with chilling calm, he reached to his belt and slid free a dagger. My body turned to stone, breath strangled in my throat. He stepped closer, eyes gleaming with a hunger I did not yet understand, yet instinct told me it meant ruin. The cold steel hovered near my neck, whispering threats my young mind could barely comprehend. But then something shifted in him. His gaze wavered. The knife hovered, then fell, clattering against roots and snow. He pushed me roughly back toward the mare, his face dark with a storm of thoughts I could not read. All the way home, tears streamed down my cheeks, silent at first, then breaking into soft, broken sobs that refused to end. Merrick said nothing. Neither did I. But from that night forward, the forest lived inside me, a place where innocence met terror, and mercy arrived without reason. That night, Merrick's voice broke the stillness. He whispered, almost to himself, "I brought you here to kill you, but I don't know why I couldn't do it.
His hand loosened on the dagger, and the cold steel slipped from his grasp. Without another word, he turned his back on me. The snow under his boots crunched softly as he walked away, leaving me trembling and alive. For the first time, mercy had been chosen over intent, though the reason remained a mystery beyond my understanding. The following morning, the village council convened in stern silence, the air thick with suspicion. They turned their gaze toward my foster family. "Why do you harbor another's child in your home?" one man demanded. "It is dangerous, for you, for us all. Better she returns to her own people." Their words pierced my fragile heart. I was no longer a child in need. To them, I was a burden, a risk, an outsider. I thought of returning to the merchant's house, to the place that had never felt like home, and my chest tightened with horror. My voice cracked as I pleaded, "Please, don't send me back. They hate me. They don't see me as their own." But my tears fell on unyielding hearts. Finally, a decision was reached. I would be moved across the border, far from our small occupied village, into the Soviet-controlled region of Eastern Europe, where a family of devout Christians known for their integrity would take me in. The journey was long and fraught with tension. Soldiers patrolled roads and the shadows of war clung to every corner. Yet, as I approached the small gray town of my new guardians, a fragile hope began to flicker in my chest. In the quiet Markovich household, I was placed under the care of Elena Markovich, a middle-aged woman, unmarried not for lack of virtue, but because war had stolen the men who might have been her match. Elena's compassion was profound. She opened worn pages of the Bible and read aloud with a voice both firm and nurturing. She taught me prayers as lifelines, courage in silence, and hope in the promise of God. Under her care, I grew, not only in body, but in spirit. Fear gradually lifted, replaced by a fragile peace. For the first time since my life had been torn apart, I felt the possibility of a true home. Years passed quietly. I worked by her side, serving with all my heart, and in return, she treated me as her own. But fate was not done testing me. One day, familiar faces appeared at the doorstep. My foster guardians returned. Their expressions held warmth mixed with urgency. They had come to escort me toward a new life, one day believed would bring protection through marriage. Elena has spoke softly, her words wrapping around my heart. "My child, this is not an ending. This is the beginning of your life. Marriage will give you your own home, your own protection." I trusted her counsel, tears streaming freely. Ahead of me awaited Andre, a kind relative of my foster family, and with him, the uncertain promise of safety, love, and belonging.
One quiet afternoon, Andrei's father, a distant relative of Elena Markovich, came to see me. He requested my hand for his son, Andrei Markovich, and though I had known little of love or choice, I sensed that life was guiding me toward a new beginning. The household I entered became my home. It was shared with Andrei, his younger brother Maxim, and their father. Their mother had passed long before. From the first days, the house began to feel like my own. Each man treated me with love, respect, and affection, and I responded in kind, pouring myself into the routines I had long practiced. I prepared warm meals, mended clothes, swept floors, and arranged the rooms with care. These small acts wove me into the fabric of the family, making me indispensable to daily life. Andrei cherished me deeply. He never let me feel loneliness, offering gentle words, kind glances, and a steady presence. The house resonated with warmth, a sanctuary from the shadows of my past. 5 years passed in peace and routine. By then, I had blossomed into adulthood and become the mother of 2 little daughters. Andrei worked tirelessly to provide for us, while Maxim often traveled for trade or errands, leaving me in the gentle care of Andrei and his father. My father-in-law adored his granddaughters, delighting in their laughter and learning. Once, a wealthy landowner's wife offered me work in her household with a handsome wage. Andrei refused firmly. "You will stay at home. A woman is the queen of her own house. I would rather toil twice as hard than let you serve in another's home." But fate turned suddenly. At a brick kiln, Andrei had a minor quarrel with a man, a heated exchange of words, nothing more. He returned home unaware that the seed of misfortune had been planted. The very next day, that man was found murdered, and suspicion, as if by cruel destiny, fell upon my husband. The police came without warning, dragging Andrei from our warm home. I clutched the door, tears streaming down my cheeks. The quiet hearth that had once been my sanctuary now felt cold and empty. For the first time, I understood the fragility of peace. The life we had built, the love, the security, the belonging, was now threatened by forces beyond our control. I could do nothing but pray, holding my daughters close, and hope that fate would return the man who had given me a true home. The trial dragged on, heavy with the fear and suspicion of wartime justice. Andrei was condemned to 24 years in prison, accused of a quarrel that had turned deadly under harsh Soviet scrutiny.
My foster father, hollowed out by grief, sank onto the wooden bench in the dim light of our hearth, as if the weight of the world had crushed him. My brother-in-law, Yvonne, earned a modest wage from laboring at the village mill, giving what he could to sustain us. Still, the cupboards were bare, and my daughters often went hungry. Out of necessity, I found work in the manor of a local landowner. There we received grain, bread, and basic sustenance to survive. Though the long, cold hours were exhausting, they passed more bearably under the knowledge that my daughters were fed and safe. One evening, my foster father spoke, voice trembling with concern. "Anna, how long will you remain a servant in someone else's home? If Andre cannot return, if the prison walls swallow him entirely, should you not seek refuge elsewhere, perhaps with relatives across the border? Your daughters are still small. They deserve safety." I sank to my knees before him. "Papa, please don't ask me to leave. I have built a life here. My daughters are the children of Andre, and my heart belongs with him. I cannot return to the world that abandoned me." He replied gravely, "Child, your protection is my responsibility for as long as I live. After me, the world may not be kind. Some villagers, bound by superstition, may refuse to see you as one of their own. Danger lurks if you stray." Days passed in quiet deliberation, the fear of loss heavy in our hearts. Finally, I spoke with calm certainty. "Papa, my daughters and I belong in this home. Here we will remain. I trust in God. If any harm comes, there are others in the community who will stand with me." He suggested another possibility, softly. "Anna, you are still young. If you wish, I can help find a worthy protector for you. Someone who can care for you and your daughters in my absence. 24 years is a long time. Perhaps Andre may never return." I answered simply, "I trust in my Lord."
In the small, war-scarred village, amid hunger, suspicion, and the oppressive presence of soldiers, I resolved that no prison, no unjust accusation could break the bond between my heart and Andre, nor could it diminish the faith that kept me alive. I had resolved to live for the sake of my daughters, working tirelessly through every long day and cold night. I prayed constantly for the safety of my foster father, who had sheltered me when the world seemed to have abandoned us. His presence had been our anchor, giving me honor and a place of refuge in the village despite the chaos surrounding us. 7 long years had passed. Then, one crisp morning, news came that Andre had been released from prison. I could scarcely believe my eyes when I saw him walk through the frost-covered streets towards our modest home. My daughters and I burst into tears of joy. The long absence of their father finally healed. The villagers murmured in astonishment at this reunion. But soon the echoes of the past stirred when my birth family unexpectedly arrived, seeking to take me back. Their journey from afar had brought them to the remnants of the old merchant's house, and then finally to my foster father's home. When my daughters-in-laws witnessed the sudden appearance of their maternal grandfather and uncle, the village erupted in confusion and gossip. My foster father and Andre quickly intervened, calming the turmoil and protecting our household. My parents insisted, "Anna, you are of our blood. Leave with us and abandon your children to their father's faith." But Andre and my foster father stood resolutely beside me. Their pleas were firm, defending the right of my daughters to remain with their mother and father. I turned to my parents, voice trembling but resolute. "When I was a child, you offered no mercy, handing me over to a man old enough to be my grandfather, as if I were mere property. How is it now, after all these years, that you suddenly wish to separate me from the children I have raised? Do you see only yourselves, forgetting the pain and loss you once caused?" The confrontation left scars in the village. People whispered about family loyalty, faith, and the consequences of old betrayals. The presence of my parents risked affecting my daughters' futures, for in times of marriage, grandparents often wield influence. After tense negotiations and repeated appeals, my parents eventually departed, leaving the household in uneasy calm. Yet life's challenges continued. My son's marriage approached, and we worked diligently to ensure his bride was kind, wise, and supportive, securing stability and love for the next generation. Gradually, the household prospered again. Andre returned fully to his work, our family thriving in the shelter and care of the community we had rebuilt. I grew old watching my children flourish, yet memories of past abandonment remained a quiet shadow in my heart. I reflected often. Families are torn apart by history, by war, and by circumstance. People are separated, destinies altered, and generations must adapt to the aftermath. But through it all, I remained steadfast in faith, grateful that Andre's innocence had been restored, and that a son, our blessing, had arrived, carrying the promise of support in my old age.
I had endured loss, betrayal, and upheaval, but the quiet hearth of our home had become a sanctuary of love, resilience, and enduring faith.